Who's ready to meet these people that create the nightmares that you all go home with when you go to these theme parks? We're going to have Larry Bones. Come on down. Halloween Horror Night. Universal Studios Hollywood. Just for you guys waiting, that is one long-ass walk. We're done with that. All right, come on down, Tim Barham from Knott Scary Farm. Please welcome Scott Ramp from Six Flags Fright Fest. And last but certainly not least, Christina Cochran from Queen Mary's Dark Harbor. All right, you use that ramp. All right. Whoa. It almost used you. All right. So again, thank you guys for coming out. This is a big deal. I've been riding Theme Park Adventure for next month will be 20 years. And so I've covered a lot of these haunted attractions pretty much the entire time that I've done TPA. And one thing that I have witnessed over the past 2 decades is a complete 180 from very quickie certain groups that were Halloween fans, and then the parks caught on and did their thing, but there was never any cross-pollination to another park, and it was everybody was in a vacuum, and they were all the best, the other guys didn't exist, blah, 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 and there were a lot of walls up. Just in the past decade, just like the fan community, in the past decade, that has come 180, and we've all become kind of one big happy family that supports one another, that loves and respects, that's a key word, respects what one another does. And so really, this panel today, this is a first. This is a historical first, because never before anywhere have all of these companies come together on one stage to support one another and to talk to you, the fans. So I think that's a really great deal. So what we're going to do is we're going to start just with a small PowerPoint presentation, and we're going to go through some slides that represent each one of these attractions. I'm guessing everybody here has been to Knott Scary Farm? Fright Fest? Dark Harbor? Maybe a couple people at Universal? So the cool thing is we've already won, because here they are with you guys today, and we're going to share some pictures, we're going to talk about the makeup process, and then we're going to spend a lot of time, hopefully, getting questions from you guys, because this is a really big deal that you can ask all the different companies all at once here. So let's get right into this. We're going to see what we have first here. That would be Larry Bones.
Alright, so what we've got here is this is our area, what we call Scare Base. This is where all our magic happens, where we create all of our monsters. And you can see everyone's set up. We're actually set up on the bottom of a parking garage. It's really glamorous. And we've set up in here, and we have, as you can see, all the makeup people set up, and we're actually in a very tight situation. We're actually in about a 50 by 50 area, so we're actually very efficiently run. We actually have to be. And here you can see some stuff on the left. This is another angle of us from inside a Scare Base. You can kind of see also another angle of how tiny we actually are on the bottom of this parking garage. And here on the right, you can actually see some work actually happening in the Boneyard studio when we're doing prep, as we're actually in the middle of right now. You see some people here seaming and painting some of the masks that you see at the event. And there you go, there's last year's crew. So we have about 42 people, professional makeup artists that work year-round in the industry that come back to Halloween Horror Nights every single year. That's really key to running Halloween Horror Nights, is having this group of people that return and know their job so well. So you can see that's the size of our crew that we have every year that create 500 to 600 monsters in about 3 to 3.5 hours. And here you can see some of the application work on the left. This is a Volerone unit from a couple of years ago, where you can see it's actually quite a large prosthetic that actually takes quite some time to put down. And there on the right, you can see some stuff from last year from Walking Dead. You can see some walkers that we see in process. Now here is from the shop. These are some of the Walking Dead molds from last year. This is just a small representation of how many molds we had to create. For last year, for the event, we had to create over 4,000 prosthetics for the event. So you can see we need multiple molds and run these things constantly. And there again, here's some other, we have an airbrush team and some makeup people. So there's actually several teams in our crew. We actually have our makeup people that do the majority of the prosthetic work. We have an airbrush crew that do anything, that do any body work or anything like that, or they might be doing 2D makeups. We actually have a hair department that takes care of the wigs and things like that. We have a mask department that is specifically there to handle all the masks. And then we have a blood person that just does blood dressing every night. And here you can see when they're again one of the Walking Dead people in process. You can see when we make them in the shop, we can only paint them so far because the people perhaps may change every night and their skin tones may change. So we can only paint them maybe to about a 50% level. So when they come in, we have to match the other pieces. And there we go. All right.
Let's find out who's next. That would be Not Scary Farm.
I'm the creative director for makeup, costume, and wigs. So let's start it off. This is us starting to just do our basic sculpt. We have in-house sculpt where each year that the designers come up with their concept for their maze, then we actually take it and decide what we're going to put into a prosthetic piece and break our mazes down based on who our characters are. We take a different approach in that we do a theatrical aspect of it. We're looking at it as a show. So we have leads, we have supporting cast, and then we have our chorus. Usually our lead would be in a prosthetic piece that's driving the show. Then we have all of our supporting where we go into our 2D makeup, and then the chorus to fill in obviously with masks. When we're dealing with 1,000 people, you gotta have some chorus work. Everybody starts somewhere. So again, some more sculpting, some other great photos, an amazing team. I'm very fortunate I have a great team out there. One of the unique things that we have to do at Knott's is we actually pour everything outside. So we're constantly doing a weather check the night before, the following morning, based on humidity, when we're running. Not the best situation, but we've actually learned to do an amazing process with actually all the temperature that's changing here in Southern California. So that's a big challenge, but yet my team always likes to go, oh, it's too hot. I'm like, all right, we'll do something else. Go pre-paint. Piles and piles and piles of prosthetics to get us through our haunt. Again, we also do the same thing. It's going to sound really kind of interesting that we all have that same process. We have airbrush, we have paint. Just some more examples of our paint, our airbrush team. Maybe. There it is. And one of our final products. One of the things that we really enjoy doing is looking at it from, again, that theatrical space. We're in a dark environment, so we really try to push all of those contours and the highlights and really do a different approach because most of the time they're really in the dark. I mean, we're really trying to find that overexposed feel to help that silhouette pop out in the dark.
All right. You know what I'm loving already is I can tell while these guys are talking, the other guys are going, oh, that's cool, that's awesome. Everybody's geeking out, that's great, I love it. All right, here we go, Scott.
That would be me. Hello, my name is Scott Ramp, and I run the event for Six Flags Fright Fest. I've been doing it for 22 years. A lot of people don't even know that Fright Fest exists, I think, partly because for a lot of years it didn't advertise very well. But we've got a really huge event. It's a big park, so some people, like you said, that you hadn't been up there for quite a while. It's changed a lot. If you haven't been to Fright Fest in a long time, it's changed quite a bit. And we do have a lot in common with us. I told you I was going to be able to do this.
You'll do it. You can do it.
I can do it.
There we go.
Okay, again, we have, just like the other guys are talking about, we have a very theatrical look because these people are out in the dark. They're all on prosthetic. We don't pre-paint any prosthetics simply for time. But we have a certain amount of time. This is one of our areas that is very clown-like, very colorful. It used to be called Gotham City. It's now called DC Universe up there. These are just some of our characters goofing off. That's a PR shot we had on the roller coasters. That's one of the downsides. Actually, Larry's parking garage sounds like heaven compared to where we are. We are in about the same size, but we're in an old converted wardrobe. I don't think any of us have the best makeup trailer kind of thing.
Where's the luxury?
No, we don't really have the really nice things, and it's but it's fun. We of course have to like yell over roller coasters constantly, which is really fun. This is This is a PR shot from a couple years ago, a zombie shot. We have a new area up there in the last 2 years that's all in black light. It's an area through the forest, and it's all in black light. So we do our makeups in UV reactive makeup, and of course, the very first year we did it, we realized that how many guests take flash pictures? Well, the flash pictures are going to look like crap. So now what we do is we have to do a nice makeup, and then we take them back into a blacklight booth and do the blacklight makeup on top of it. So it's like 2 makeups in one, because we know that most people don't seem to grasp the concept that you don't need a flash. Kind of bizarre. And we
None of you do that, right?
And we got some really cool UV lenses on some of those characters too. That was a shot from last year there too. It was pretty fun. What the heck? Oh, that's from one of our live shows. There's a lot of different events that go on. I think we've got like 8 different mazes. I mean, I know we do 500 people, and then we've got over 100 people in prosthetics. I've got a crew of 37. It's grown exponentially to try and maybe now get on a competitive level, and I mean that in a friendly way with the other parks, so that we're all kind of like, you know, people can go, oh, cool, this week we're going to Universal, next week we're going to Knott, and then we're going to Six Flags, then we're going to Queen Mary, woo. Again, I don't know why we have something from that one area, but we've got, these are just some of our characters from that same area. They tend to like to ham around. Colorful, weird, we get a lot of color hairspray. Yeah, we don't have a wig department, we get our hands really dirty, which is gross. That's me and my crew, they look like they love me, but I think they're fond of me, but it's a lot of fun. We have a real fun crew. I've got a lot of friends from the industry that do this. I mean, most of us know that our artists are really talented. They're not doing it for the money. They're doing it for the experience and the fun and the learning experience. That was my crew.
All right.
There you go.
There.
All right, you go.
Right.
So my name is and I've been working at the Queen Mary for 17 years this year, and started off when it was the old event, and now it's evolved into something really big called Queen Mary Stark Harbor. These are going to be some behind the scenes photos. This is one of our key characters getting made up, and she's actually one of the drowned victims in the pool. You may have heard of her in the earlier presentation, ScareLA. So this is just the base coat. So we have people do a lot of airbrush because we're really limited on time. Some of our characters only take about 5 to 10 minutes to get done, and then some are in makeup for about an hour if they're a key character. We have about 20, I would say 25 makeup artists on average to do between 150 to 200 monsters, and sometimes we get a lot of surprise media and guests, and we end up having to do extra stuff, so we get quite busy and have a lot of surprises like that. This is Peggy. Some of you probably met her throughout the day. She's one of our key characters also. She's the character as the ringmaster. A lot of our makeup artists help design some of these makeups. We come up with concepts ahead of time, and then we allow them to use their own creativity to kind of explore and make it their own. But we also cross-train some of the makeup artists so that everybody can do other characters in case somebody's out. This character has a combination of some buildups on the neck, which is latex and cotton, and the rest of it is airbrush and a lot of water-based makeup. The reason why we don't do a lot of prosthetics is because we have such a teeny budget, and we have to get very creative. But our makeup artists, again, are extremely talented and can make things look like prosthetics when needed. And there's a few people who do have some prosthetics for, but we really try to keep it at a minimum as much as possible. This is another one of our lead characters, and again you can see it on the left side he's getting prepped, on the right he's completely done, and there's a combination of some airbrush technique and a little bit of latex as well. Next one. And this is again another lead character. The ones in these pictures are the ones that take a little bit extra time. And what we like to do is have sort of like an assembly line where we train the makeup artist to repeatedly do the same thing over and over. And by the end of the event, they're like 10 times faster at it in the beginning. And another thing we do love is that most of our makeup artists come back, and it makes it easier and easier every year. When we lose a person that goes to another event, like Magic Mountain or something like that, we cry. But you know, some people have come back and forth, and it's great because they end up becoming, you know, better at what their craft is, because they get a totally different experience with the other haunts as well. And I also tend to hire people that have been at other haunts because I know that they've already worked there, and they're fast, they know what to do, and it's very minimal work for me. This is one of my favorite characters. This is Graceful Gale. She has this cracked look on her face, and it's something that one of my assistants, she's the assistant manager, and she came up with this idea to use a clay mask. Just something from the 99-cent store, because again, it's a low budget, and then she airbrushes over this makeup, and it just comes out really beautiful. It's a very classic look, but it's still very eerie. And on the left again is the same character, but this is from one of our Day of the Dead events. So after Halloween, we're still open, and we do Dia de los Muertos, and all of the characters that we normally do, we basically build on top of that makeup and make them go with the theme of the Day of the Dead, and it's beautiful. There's so many really cool characters that they come up with. And the one on the right here is, I don't think he's from Day of the Dead. He may have been, I'm not 100% sure, but this character here is utilized in a bunch of different mazes, and I think the makeup artist that works on him, I just love that they come up with such great techniques, because this actor happens to be amazing, and I feel like when we have good talent that we're working with, it really helps the makeup artists be a lot better at their job, because they work together in sync, and it helps each of them do a better job. This is Scary Mary again. It's just another shot of her. The original picture you saw was her getting airbrushed, and this is the final shot with her wig. We do some wig styling, but the makeup department is mainly just makeup. We tend to do a lot of hairstyling. We don't use a whole lot of wigs. If we do have wigs, we try to really mess them up, and they look disgusting, and we beat them up. So we don't do any very fancy hairstyling or anything like that. It's mostly like distressing. And we also have some costuming that has hair built into it as well. So we work very closely with our wardrobe department. We do have a separate wardrobe department, and we also have a props department as well. And the props department has been more and more producing pieces that we can use to help us cut back on some of the time that we spend on doing the makeup. So that's really been helping us out a lot. And there you go. All right.
It's interesting as you're looking at this, and as we were looking at the PowerPoint coming together, it was funny, it struck us that you didn't even need to really necessarily see the name next to the pictures. You can tell when you're looking at a Knott monster, you can tell when you're looking at a Dark Harbor character, you can tell when you're looking at an IP figure, you know, that's from Universal. It's just really interesting that every park is kind of involved with its own style. And we were talking back in the green room about these guys are so busy from, you know, now, from before now, all the way through October, they never get to really see each other's haunts. So, you know, you guys don't visit any other haunts, right, this time of year? No. So everybody is living in a vacuum, and you'd think, well, they're makeup professionals, they're makeup artists, who want to get out and see what's going on in these different parts. That's just not the case because they don't have the time, they don't have the bandwidth for that. How much of your own talent goes into dictating what their makeup's look like? Do you give a lot of leeway with that? Larry, I know you can't because you have very specific guidelines that you need to follow.
Absolutely. If we have to move a character from a film, we have to make them look just like that. So it's very strict. You know, the fans know what they're going to look like, so we have to do our best to pull off those characters every time.
Yeah. And now, so the Queen Mary characters are really interesting because they're steeped in some lore that's based in reality on the ship, but then you also have a lot of creative leeway with that. How much of the character actors, physical attributes, play into your makeup designs?
I think the lead characters that we see in some of these shots and the ones we talked about earlier in the day, those are the ones that we do need to make them look as close as possible to the storyline that go with some of the actual hauntings that have occurred on the ship, so they do have to look like the description of those characters. But as far as the other characters, we try to base them on the mazes. And I work really closely with the casting director and the creative director to get some feedback from them on which of their characters are the leads and which ones have lines and what their costumes look like. And we all sit together in a big room and we sort of have like a brainstorming session and we come up with some ideas. And then I go back with about 4 of my lead assistants and we all sit down and we get colors out and we start drawing and we sketch everything up. And they're the ones who help me come up with a lot of stuff, and then we kind of feed off each other. We might tweak that other person's design for them. You should add this. And then once we go back to the actual event, there's a lot of characters that we just, on the fly, we start making up. And what I do is, I'm like a ping pong ball. I run around constantly, and I'm just always guiding each person to tweak something. And by the end of the first week, that last day of the first week, we usually have all the characters set and down, and we create these little cards and take photos of them so that when another artist gets that same character, they know exactly how to replicate it. And then we still allow a little bit of creative freedom. As long as it's approved by myself or the creative director, we allow the artist to kind of work with it, and it comes out just so great.
Scott, how about you guys?
We're actually very much the same way. I've got a lot of creative control and creative freedom. I like to give my artists the freedom as well. It's very much the same thing. We've got a lot of characters in airbrush, a lot of them in a very large percentage prosthetic. Obviously, the creative crew come up with the designs, and then we fit the things into the designs. We also have a lot of actors that have come back year after year after year, and sometimes the look evolves and changes a little bit. I like to give my makeup artists their freedom because they're very creative people. And as the weeks go along, like you said, the first weekend is usually we always used to call it dress rehearsal weekend because the first weekend is usually slower. It gives everybody a chance to get the bugs out. But by the end, everybody's getting real creative and sometimes maybe a little too creative. But that's what we love those. We actually do like those nights. We actually have talent, one of our talent who came up with an idea years ago, and for some reason it has stuck. And he would go out into his area all scary wearing a little tiara, and he'd call it Princess Sunday. And for whatever freaking reason, half of the cast now wears little tiaras and pearls. I have more pictures of zombies. I couldn't bring pictures of zombies in tiaras. It just didn't really work, but they seem to have picked it up. And that's all the actors themselves.
So we're going to jump over to Knott's because what I have noticed you look at Knott's pictures from the 70s that evolved from Don Post masks to some of the early makeups, and then the 80s and the 90s. But more recently, you do find that there are a lot of haunt monsters at Knott's Scary Farm that kind of have their own look, and you guys have become, it seems, more lax on as long as it looks fantastic, and you have the creativity and the know-how to do this. You guys have been pretty good about letting people kind of create their own monsters.
Yeah, these people live and breathe this for 360 days. The rest of our team at Knott really can't live in that world for 365 days. So when they come, they've got such a deep backstory. They know every little nuance of that character. So we say, bring it on. If you've got a character that can drive and live within that world, and we have big worlds. I mean, Ghost Town is a large space to live in. The boardwalk, it's a large space, so we say, bring it forward. During auditions, that's when they will pitch a character for us. And if that makes sense and we drive forward, then they get with the artists. And some of the artists have been with these characters for a long time. And they start developing and tweaking and driving that costume character into a new look. So it started here and it's sitting here and we have no idea where it's going to go. But I was always told at a really young age in this business, hire the best and get the hell out of the way. So I pretty much stand back. If it makes sense and works, we let it drive.
That's pretty cool. You know, Larry, as you're hearing about, you know, the different, you know, artists being creative with their talent and all that, as a professional makeup artist yourself, when you're doing these so many IP mazes for Universal, do you find that it's more of a challenge or more fun to do the IP characters, or when you have something like, you know, a La Llorona maze come along where you can kind of do your own look? Which do you prefer?
You know, I think quite honestly, doing the IP stuff, you know, it's such a huge challenge for me and my crew to create something that, you know, everyone knows, everyone's seen the film. Like for last year example, we did Evil Dead remake, you know, and everyone knew that. So when we looked at like the Mia character, you know, we know, okay, well, how are we going to create this thing? But those kind of things are really just trying to create it fast and create it almost as close to movie quality as we possibly can in the time we have it. So I think those are the challenges that really make it such a fun job.
One of the reasons that I wanted to do this panel with this group of people is because very often makeup artists and the people that work back of house are really underappreciated, and they just go, they don't even. There you go. I really thought this was a good stepping off point to talk about. I want to go back over numbers again, and just briefly remind everybody how many people you guys are processing a night to be made up, and about how long that takes, and how many makeup artists that takes for your different events.
Absolutely. We have this year, we have about 42 makeup artists. We start at 3 p.m. and by 6:30 we'll have processed about 550 to 600 people at the night.
That's frightening. For Knott, we have this year, we took a big jump from where we were last year. This year we're at 38 makeup artists, and we're doing 330. We start at, our first time slot was 4:20, and we go until 8 o'clock. Because of California laws, we've all had to adjust accordingly to get those breaks and lunches in. If anybody's on management, they understand that. So for us, we do makeup slots every 20 minutes for us to put all those people out.
We've got a crew of 37 in our main area and another 9 located in a couple different places in the park. We usually start at about, the same thing with the California law, we start at about 3 o'clock. Our crush time is about between 4 and 7, and in that period of time, we turn out about 110 people in prosthetics and another 300 and something in airbrush.
We actually hired 25 people, but every night we're only allowed to bring on 18 artists because the rest are all backups. So in other words, if one of the makeup artists gets sick or something happens, then we can call those backups and have one person replace. That's what our budget allows. We have, I would say, close to 200 monsters, not including all the surprise things that we end up having to do every night. And we start working about 4 o'clock. I would say most of the time we don't really get started heavily until 4:30 because it takes people time to crawl in and get checked in and everything. And talent starts getting into our seats actually about 4:30. And they need to be camera ready at 7 o'clock where the gates actually open. But they have to be done before that because they have to go to wardrobe, and they also have to go to the bar and walk over to their spaces, because some of these characters are walking over to the ship and some are walking over to the village. And we're located, makeup room is actually located, and it's not glamorous either. We're inside of a dome, which used to be where the Spruce Goose was located. And we're in like this giant glass fishbowl. We've been on the ship before, and that changes sometimes, but I would say they usually need to be out like by 6:30 to give time to eat and everything.
So just as unique and different as all of these parks are, you guys have a whole different set of logistics that you have to face in bringing your crews there and setting these monsters out every night. What are some of the challenges of working on the Queen Mary? I mean, you're working on an actual ship, and most people wouldn't think about it, but inside the hull of the ship, it's hotter than hell, and it's all night long it's hotter than hell. So how do you guys counter with that?
Well, there's a couple different challenges that just popped up last year and the year before, I think, that were interesting. In the makeup room where the dome is at, we also have another event that's being built during the whole run of Dark Harbor, and that is called Chill. And so there's a giant tent inside that is at sub-zero temperatures. So we're freezing inside trying to do makeup. At the same time, monsters are like all coming in sweaty because it's super hot outside in the beginning of October, and it ends up cooling down over time. So some of the challenges are that on the ship, they're in really tight, hot confined spaces. And there's some people who we call sweaters that they're in your makeup chair and they're drenched, and you wipe them down and they're drenched anyway, and there's nothing you can do about it. So we do our best to, we just do touch-ups on them all night long. And there's some people who we tried putting masks on them, but they just sweat so much that their own sweat ends up burning their eyes, and it's just really uncomfortable. So what we try to do is have those people cool down and come in towards the end so that they have time to relax and cool off. And of course, we just use certain materials to help prep the skin to make it something that we can work with. Another challenge would be when it rains, because we have some of the mazes outside, they're outdoors, and some of the characters are walking around in the rain. So if it's really bad, we end up having to shut down early, but there's a lot of characters who we just seal them really well, and our makeup artists know which techniques to use and which materials to use to try and use like a durable application. I would say most of the makeup that we do lasts the entire night. So they go on at 7, they don't get off until some nights 1 in the morning.
And Scott, you guys are unique because you start during the day, yeah?
We start during the day.
And everybody knows how cool Valencia is.
Oh, it's really breezy and cool. Yeah.
So how do you guys deal with that during the day?
There are many 100+ degree days up there, and it gets very difficult. They have breaks. We try to keep everybody cool. I'm kind of a little dictator, and I tell them not to drink and not, the night before, so nobody's sweating off their makeup, and that's one of those little tricks that makeup artists know. And we just try to keep everybody as cool as possible. But if you've ever been to Magic Mountain, the reason it's called Magic Mountain, if you've ever hiked that place, it's huge. A lot of people don't realize it's geographically 1.5 times the size of Disneyland. It's huge. And a lot of our talent get made up in one area and then have to get clear across to the other parts of the park. And if I have to go out on a park check at night, I'm hiking up and down ginormous hills, and I'm 53 years old. It gets a little tiring. But it's quite a challenge.
Yeah. And now, Tim, with Knott's, you guys deal with mazes that are constructed outside, like with gunslingers, and you also have these Butler buildings now that have been built, these warehouses. What are the changes in temperature and the different challenges do you guys kind of compensate for this is inside all the time, this is outside?
Yeah, we try to look at that, but most of it, we're really fortunate because we have giant fans for our warehouses, and we stick them at both ends to just circulate air. Our outdoor mazes tend to just breathe better. At the end of the day, they just breathe better. So for us, our indoor ones, we use a little extra glue. We really just think about that. These guys are inside, we glue a little more.
Larry, you guys, you're dealing with a working movie studio. Do you guys ever have to work around that? I know in the past couple of years you guys have, and especially now with the Harry Potter construction also, has kind of upheaved everything there. What's been the challenge there working with the studio and the theme park?
Well, the fact that they're tearing that park apart, it is really ripped apart, and so it actually makes it very difficult to find areas to make a maze. So it's really a challenge for Chris and John there to figure out, wow, where are we going to put this? Can we do this? And it's always a challenge every year, and it's really just trying to find get them through this thing. It's such a small areas that what we used to have gigantic areas are now being bottlenecked down. So we have to they're trying to put a lot of these stuff back on the metro sections back in the New York area. So we can so there's very little on the other side. So they're actually trying to find other areas and create stuff. So they're using the metro area like they did last year, where they put Walking Dead and they put the Black Sabbath area. It's really helping a lot.
I'm guessing that people in the audience like doing makeup applications. And do we have haunt monsters in the audience? No, they're all scaring. I see one there. Okay, so there it is. Good. Anybody that's wondering about how they get into this business, how do you become a lead makeup artist at a major event like this? Larry, why don't you answer what's the right down the line? Yeah.
Well, it's actually very hard to get on my crew. It's actually, actually, this year's the first year I've actually had an opening in several years because the people come back every year. But really, it's a drive and a passion. You know, what I'm really looking for in my crew are people that are professionals that work this year round. You know, I mean, they also have this love for Halloween and horror nights, so they love to come back and do this thing. So it's really just drive and passion for this event, really.
We look for people who've had some kind of schooling, whether it's been through beauty school, gone to actually an FX makeup company, or have done some kind of theatrical background. We want some kind of base. We really don't try to take a lot of brand new people. We'll like take a couple in and help them learn from the tribe, basically. But we don't try to bring in a lot because it's just too hard and it's too fast. We also look for somebody who has have some speed. You got 20 minutes and we need you to get it done. So we have started doing testing. We will bring people in and not just look at a portfolio, but we actually want to timing on a makeup run and see how that does. And that's really kind of shifted a lot of people going, ooh, I have to actually do a practical. Yeah, we got to do a practical. And it was really helpful for some of our veterans that we were like, oh, you got actually more speed and you're hiding it, so we're going to make you work forever. So for us, that's what we look for, right?
I've taught makeup for over 30 years, so I started with a lot of students years ago, and I've sort of segued into now where most, in the last 10 years, most of them are all professional makeup artists, other people I've worked with, friends I can beg to please come work with me for next to nothing, and we just hang out and have fun. So I've got a lot of friends, a lot of students. One of my dear friends teaches is one of the heads of cinema makeup school, and I teach there occasionally, so I use a lot of cinema students. I take applications from pretty much anybody, but we have a pretty tight crew. We don't lose very many, and every once in a while, like a lot of us have had, oh, so-and-so worked with me, and so-and-so worked with you now, and you know, it's a small industry, and we all get along.
I would say that I don't really look for necessarily whether they went to school or they have a ton of experience. I really try to talk to them and understand I try to read them very carefully, because I feel like a lot of people come in and they have really great pictures, and it could be that they went to a school and they have really great samples of everything that they were taught in school, but when you start to talk to them, then you kind of get a better idea and understanding of, do they know what it's like to be under this crazy amount of pressure and to work with the most minimal materials and to try and make this incredible picture out of nothing. So one of the things that I recently started doing a couple of years ago is I try to have a nice balance of some artists who have experience with a lot of theatrical and character makeup, because they're able to morph somebody's face into a different shape and with a lot of extreme highlight and contour, especially because we're in really dark areas. So I actually hired some people who even have like a second job as drag queens, because they're able to, they know how to make that extreme look, but have a couple people doing that, a couple people who are really great at effects, and what I do is I cross-train them, and I do also the same thing you guys do, where you have some drills, and I actually have some of the veteran artists perform, pretend that they're talent, and they're the models, and they'll act and behave like the way it is that day, because I want to see, are they going to crash under pressure? There's some really great artists that I've hired, and then when we go to test them, they totally choke. So, and I've given them 2-3 chances, and they choke 3 times in a row, and it's like, that's not somebody who's going to work for us. So.
Portfolio by Google Images. We're going to open up the floor to questions. I'm sure some of you guys have questions for these individual parts or the group as a whole. I do want to say that I think that everybody would be in agreement here. I think that we should dedicate this important panel discussion to the memory of Dick Smith. Okay, who has questions for the parks up here? Come on, hands. Oh, come on. There we go, come on.
So my question is for Knott's Six Flags in Dark Harbor. Because your events don't have the access to the intellectual property that Universal does, how do you ever find yourselves in a situation where you feel like you're towing the line to being too close to something else that is still copyrighted, or how do you keep yourselves distanced from those kinds of complications?
I'd be happy to answer that. We started our DC Comics area which years ago, if you're familiar with Six Flags, was called Gotham City. And it was all patterned after Gotham City and the original, Schumacher and Tim Burton films. And at one point, Six Flags was owned by Warner Brothers, who also was producing the movies, and we thought, I had a great idea. I said, why don't we do, the cartoon villains, like the Joker and some of the characters from that. And we went through legal things back and forth, and the one arm of Warner Brothers wouldn't give the other arm of Warner Brothers the permission to do it. And so I just sort of started tweaking it and playing with it, and I said, well, if we don't call it the Joker, and long story short, many years later now, it seems like most of our characters in that area are that sort of comic book, long chin, white face, colored hair, creepy type of look. And it stuck, even though now it's not even Gotham City anymore. It kind of stuck, but we did toe the line on that for a while.
There is one issue that we ran into last year, and there's been other issues in the past, and it was related to Knott's. And it was, I believe that we had some characters that were using prosthetics that were kind of generic that you could buy at a Halloween shop or online. And it was the long-faced clowns, because we had a 3D maze, and it was getting too close to the characters, and people were saying like, oh, a Knott's monster. And so immediately when that happened, we decided to, when Dark Harbor came on, they came up with these characters based on the ghost sightings on the ship, and each of the mazes that has a theme. We really tried carefully on the makeup team to look at all the other characters that are out there from other events, and to get as far away from them as possible and make them aim towards those mazes. Another thing that we ran into last year that was an issue is because we do these little sideshows. I believe we had a performance where somebody was doing a lip-syncing drag show, and it was a Disney character. No one even thought about it because it's not like Disney does like sponsor or anything. So
their lawyers do.
Yeah. So we got in trouble for it, and we promised to never do anything like that again. So that was just like an oversight, but we definitely try not to do that.
For Knott's, we push the line as close as we can until our lawyers tell us to stop. We're that bad child who will go, how far, how far, how far? Okay, too far. So for years we had a few characters in a hanging show. From your park. And they came quite nicely and said no more. So, you push them as far as you can, and then when they say you've gone too far, then we pull back and look at where we're at.
Any other questions in the room? Anybody? There we go.
For last year, I do makeup for Home Hunt. I'm finally pushing 1 pro last year. My numbers are so small compared to yours. I'm by myself. I do like 30 people tops. But I was wondering, do you...
Wait, you're a home hunt?
That one for last year, yeah.
Last year you were a home hunt and you had 30 people that you did?
Well, last year was our first year going pro. The year before that, we probably had like 20 then.
But still 30. That's okay. Keep going, yeah.
Do you have any tips, or what are your favorite tricks to get blended edges done real quick, or any little quick makeup tricks to help with the speedy process for someone?
We all have some trick, I'm sure.
They're about to learn each other's tricks. You really screwed them now.
In the spirit of Dick Smith, who shared stuff, I blended, but you don't have time to do the kind of Bondo edges. You don't have time to lay down perfect edges. The best way for a hunt, when you're limited in time and you have less than an hour to do a prosthetic, a lot of it is carrying that shadow out beyond and onto the face, and doing some spattering with a couple of highlights and shadows just to break up the illusion to the eye. That's really all you can do. I mean, anybody, all of us know our own abilities, and we look at something and go, oh, I see an edge. Well, of course you see an edge. It's Halloween. But if it's done well enough, that shouldn't be the problem. It's when somebody collapses and goes, oh, I just peed myself. That's what you want. Oh, maybe not.
I think because it's Halloween, it's not TV, so it's not the most important thing, but I think that sometimes it can be covered with hair. If you have a wig and you're teasing that wig and being really careful to spray it in a way so that it's at least disguising some of it. So if you really feel like you absolutely have to have that blended edge, you can hide the majority of it with hair and then only work on the parts that are not covered by the hair. Another trick that we've used is blood. You can always, depending on the type of makeup, you can always add some blood to an edge. Also, the way you model the makeup and if you're not using like a nice like even coat of makeup and you're trying to make it more like a blotchy kind of look, you can always go in and stipple a bunch of colors over it and it kind of like gives you this illusion that you don't really see the line as much. So those are 3 tricks that we use.
I think for Knotts, we acknowledge it. Like, go for it. Make it a line, make it a crevice, make it a shadow. Don't say, I'm not pretending this edge is rough. We say own the edge, make it cool, make it something, make it broken, whatever is the skull popping out. I mean, just own the edge and not pretend like it's not there. Just be creative and find a way to make that edge work into what you're doing. Don't be afraid.
Well, with us, we have to blend edges.
They're not relaxed about that. It's Halloween.
Yeah, so we have to blend them, and what we don't really buy is pre-painting our appliances as far as we possibly can beforehand. That saves so much time in the coloring of it. And also, when you actually glue the back of the appliances, some people will put a little spot on the nose and put that on and pull it back a little bit here. We glue almost the entire back of it and slap it on their face. And just get it on there. I think it gives us a little more time to come back, and we use like red stipple sponges to go around the edges 4 or 5 times whenever it takes to blend them down. And they're again using makeup techniques to really also hide them. We use sea sponges a lot to put over makeups and stuff like that, to put textures in, and also spattering techniques, anything like that. But there's no way around for us to get away from those edges.
So I'm a fan, so I have a question. I'm going to put you guys kind of on the spot here. I want to know what your personal favorite makeup is that you guys have done, either in all eternity or in the past year or 2. We'll start with Larry. Just come on down and just tell us.
That's a really tough one. There's so many that we do that we really enjoy doing. Like, I mean, last year I really enjoyed doing like the stuff for Evil Dead. We did prostate transfers for the first time. It was a little insane gluing these big hunks of glue to people's faces. But that was really what was required to do it. And things like that are really the challenges to bring them forth. So any given year is going to be, what's the most toughest thing we have? That's probably going to be my most favorite thing.
For me, it was the Green Witch. It was something that was an unknown thing that's just been in the history of Knotts, and we actually brought her forward and strong and present, and we wanted to make her soft and sexy, yet authoritative. So for me, that was her. The Green Witch just was my favorite.
Wow, that is putting us on the spot. Strangely, I think when we started our blacklight area, I think that was fun. The experiment through that was really interesting, and finding out that people took flash pictures, and now you got 2 makeups on top of each other, and learning the subtleties with blacklight makeup and the availability, eyes, hair. I'm pretty proud of that area.
My favorite makeup that one of our makeup artists does is the captains, but my really truly favorite makeup has nothing to do with our characters. It actually has to do with something, a tradition that we have in our department. Every single weekend of the event, we try to make it fun for the makeup artists, and we have themed nights. It's usually Saturdays or Sundays, and we each dress up based on the theme. And we've all come in one day as zombies. We've come in before as I think we came in as wrestlers, and we always have different kinds of things that we do. And I feel like in doing that, it gets them familiar with what it feels like to be in makeup all day and be running around working and sweating, and they kind of feel a little bit more sympathetic towards the talent. So I would say that that's more of the favorite stuff that I have.
That reminds me of something that Knotts used to do. They don't really do it much anymore. That type of thing is more tight in the execution. But if you were a Knotts Scary Farm fan, you would go every Halloween, and all the monsters park-wide would be orange and black. Does anybody remember that? Does anybody remember that? Those days? Good. Does anybody else have any questions? Okay, right here.
Kind of building on what you were saying, are any of you willing to admit being unable to resist the urge once in a while to get done up in makeup and go out in the dark yourselves, just anonymously to have a little fun?
Yeah.
Before the Queen Mary was run, it's now Dark Harbor, so the old event, we had the freedom to do that whenever we wanted. We would just have to run it by management, and we would actually get dressed up, and I myself have gone in as a gargoyle in full bodysuit with biceps and big legs and muscles. I've been harassed by some of the guests, and we would run around scaring people, and I mean, it's awesome. It also made me appreciate how hard it is to be a monster. Now we can't get away with it, and we only mainly stay inside the makeup room. But on Halloween night, everybody's welcome to come to the event. Even the guests are allowed to come dressed up, and I mean, it's awesome. It's amazing how many different, incredible, not just makeups, but costumes that we also see.
I will occasionally, mostly for my makeup artists and the talent that have to go through this night after night after night, usually once or twice a year, I will get dressed up and I have an iconic character. I'm an old clown named Pops, and it's something I've done forever. There's pictures of it up in my booth too, but I will get dressed up, and I'm still just me. I'm still just talking like this. I'm like, yeah. But I'm a creepy clown, and people just can't get over that. Once in a while, I will go out into the park just for a few minutes and take pictures with guests, and it really is a blast. It's worth it. I mean, I'm glad I don't have to go through it night after night after night after night, but it is fun.
I do not dress up. No, thank you.
Larry, do you have time to dress up?
I really don't. The only time I actually ever did it, someone did airbrush makeup on me, and everyone swore Rob Zombie was walking through the park.
Okay, one more question. Right there.
All right, out of all the years you guys have been working each of your haunts, I want to know, is there a maze throughout all the years, is there one maze that actually did scare you when you walked through it? And which one was it?
No, you're laughing aloud. You go.
I walk through every night. I get scared so easy. I hate it, and the monsters go after me. They're like tens in the maze, and I can hear it through the entire maze. Who's in here? I know where they're at, so I'm like, okay, they're not there. Oh crap. They will just go after me in the maze. So for me, I get all of them. It doesn't matter. I'm an easy target. I scream and run. I'm that guy in the maze, knocking people down to try to get out of the way. So,
I actually don't get scared. My monsters make it a habit to try and scare me. In fact, nothing scares me. I can go through a haunted house. I don't know why. It kind of irritates me. But what will scare me is if I'm not paying attention and somebody walks up behind me and goes, "Hey Scott," and I jump like. But if it's a monster trying to get me, it won't happen. If it's somebody walking up and tapping me on the shoulder, I'll jump a lot.
Well, for me, not really. I don't really get scared either, but the same thing. Those characters are always trying to find me. Oh, the makeup man's here, let's get him. It's like I'm always on my guard looking for them. But yeah, it's all the same thing. Usually don't get all that scared from them.
And they go home like, dude, I scared Rob Zombie.
I also walk through the mazes almost every night, or at least once a weekend, and I've for many years. But I still get scared. I don't get scared like I'm frightened, but I get really surprised, and when I do, I curse like a sailor. And I really hate it because I don't sound like I'm potty mouth.
Which is shocking because no haunters or haunt fans have potty mouth. Guys, I want to thank you. I want to thank you, and I want to thank you for spending some time with us this afternoon. Thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of ScareLA. We'll see you tonight after the